Like to say welcome everyone to the Master of Translational Medicine informational session. I'm so glad you could join us. This year we decided to have an informational session a little bit earlier because it looks like there's lots of enthusiasm for the program. I've been getting emails, and so has Joy, about our program, interest in it, and things like that. So hopefully this will answer a lot of questions. And I'd like to get started and introduce you, first of all, to myself as well as Joy. So I am Verna Rodriguez. I'm the executive director of the program, and this will be my third year that I've had a cohort teaching and running the program between both campuses. And then my background is in industry. I've got 40 years of experience in medical device companies, large and small, consulting, startups, as well as big companies like Boston Scientific and others. And I've a little bit before teaching and running this program, I was also teaching as an adjunct lecturer at Santa Clara University in their bioengineering department. So I love this program, and I'll tell you more, but I'd like you to meet Joy on as well.
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Joy, and I'm the program manager for the MTM program. So I do a lot of the administrative, student services, student life, behind the scenes stuff. Also been with the program 3 years, but I have 15 years experience in higher ed in different capacities. So officially want to welcome you. Also want to let you know that we have student ambassadors that are going to be joining us today. So 3 of them are here today. You'll see they have their cameras on so you can match them. So we have Yvonne, Krishna, and Vinayak are here with us today. So you'll be hearing from them a little bit later on in our chat. So feel free during any time to use the chat function to ask questions as well. And we'll go ahead and answer those. So here we go. Back to Verna.
So this slide is meant to sort of show you why translational medicine is important. And I wanted to start out with this first little bit of a picture and story about this Lucera Check It. This was also ends up, I think it was actually acquired by Pfizer, and it's now a flu and a COVID test. But a little bit of history on this. This was actually the first molecular test for COVID-19 technology, and it came out of a UC Berkeley lab. All the way back in 2013 or 14, before we had the pandemic, MTM students worked on a small part of this. So there was obviously a lot of pivots and changes in direction in order to bring it to being a COVID test, where it was eventually successful. But basically, this is why it's important to work on translational medicine, because you can have a lot of science that's on the benchtop, and unless you fully execute all the different things to get something not only into clinical trials, but also into commercial use, then you may not have a product at all. You just have science that remains on the benchtop. So the one thing I'd like to say about our program that you might see as a difference from other translational programs is that translational medicine, if you look it up in Wiki or any other place where you can find a definition, it's very broad in definition, but a lot of times various programs focus on a very narrow aspect. I believe our program focuses on the broad aspect because we don't just say translating from the benchtop to a clinical trial, which a lot of times programs will focus on just learning how to write grants to be able to get something within a particular hospital. And that's great. But remember, if you want to translate something to where it's going to make a large impact across a country, around the world, you need to be able to understand how to commercialize that. And commercialization has a lot of different aspects to it. So our goal is to not only answer the question, what is translational medicine, like I was just telling you about, broadly, but also how will our program prepare you to be a medical innovator in this large space of translational medicine. So translational medicine, like I was mentioning, is a program or an aspect of science that bridges the gap between research and clinical use. Okay, and it goes basically from a concept into a clinic and also onto commercial use. And so what we do is you're going to get tools and technologies, help tools and technologies get into the hands of patients and doctors. And it really is a process unto itself. It's got lots of caveats of things that can go wrong. It's got lots of different partners and advocates and things like that. So it's just not an automatic process to do deep research and the science will then sell itself. There's lots of things to navigate. So this is a little diagram to just show you that this navigation is not a straightforward path, and there's a lot of aspects that are involved. So one of the first aspects that you want to think about is this going to be an adequate business? So even though you've got something that can save lives, it will not go into commercial use, or at least won't go very far unless you have a business plan. And business decisions are important in terms of how are you going to reimburse your product, because most hospitals get paid about 80 to 90% from insurance companies. So if you don't have a product that is going to be reimbursed by an insurance company, whether it's private or public, then you're not going to have a viable product that's going to make it in the market. The other pathway that you need to think about is the healthcare system. You need to understand what the workflow is going to be for your product. How is the clinician going to use it? Is it going to be cumbersome to their natural workflow? Also, is it going to be something that fits into the hospital system? And so who's the customer? Is it like a clinician? Is it the patient themselves? These are all the things you need to find out in terms of getting your product to be successful. And then the FDA, it's a heavily, heavily regulated industry. So you need to understand, first of all, is your product a medical product? There's a specific definition about what is a medical device versus what is a drug. And then your FDA pathway is important to understand so that you can strategically know and plan out how your product is going to be tested and how long it's going to take. So safety and efficacy are what the FDA, as well as other notified bodies and regulatory agencies around the world care about. And it's all about data, and specifically, most of the time you're going to need clinical trials, especially for drugs. For medical devices, clinical trials also usually the case, or at least previous data that shows that you have a similar enough device that has clinical data to back it. So in summary, then, the commercializing path for medical innovation is very complex. I mentioned obviously reimbursement, regulatory workflows, but there's also intellectual property or IP, the market landscape, and even the market landscape as it may be changing. Obviously with COVID, when it happened, it really changed a lot of things over a very short period of time. And now as we come out of a pandemic era, things are adjusting yet again in the medical and pharma industry. So all of these things have to be navigated and strategically understood so that you can be the most knowledgeable on your team in discussing these things, and in terms of understanding how your product is going to successfully make it into the hands of patients and clinicians. So with that, our program mission is to provide engineers, but also clinicians and life scientists with the science and engineering, the business, and the training necessary to take medical innovations from initial concept into clinical use and commercialization. I'm going to turn this over to Joy then.
Yeah, so as Verna just mentioned, obviously translational medicine brings together a diverse skill set, right? So engineers, clinicians, life scientists. So we actually very much capture that within our curriculum and also within our student body. So we're all coming together to work on real world problems, right? So we're on our capstone teams and our capstone projects that we run, we bring together cross-functional interdisciplinary teams that bring together those from different backgrounds. So as this slide shows, you can see who our students are and how we've built our cohorts to foster this cross-functional work that is very much the cornerstone in translational medicine. So we take diverse teams to become successful in addressing complex problems and challenges. So you can look and see that we bring together those with the bioengineering, biomedical engineering background, other engineering disciplines, and then the life sciences too. Those are whether they're biology, biochemistry, neuroscience, or other life science programs. And then we always have a small subset, about 5 to 7 to 10% of our cohort, depending on the year, are practicing clinicians, whether that be doctors, pharmacists, nurses. So we really draw on that. So in the same way that we draw on this diverse set of background in our student body, we also have a diverse landscape in terms of where we're located, right? So being located in the Bay Area, we take the best of both worlds of both Berkeley and UCSF. So the breadth and strength of our curriculum is what it takes to become a master of translational medicine. So this is something that makes us very unique. Our students are enrolled at both campuses and take classes at both campuses. And you also get to take advantage of the expertise and resources of these two campuses. So most of the engineering and science and business leadership courses are on the Berkeley campus. And then the clinical courses are at the UCSF campus. So we bridge those nicely, and we actually take the bridge across to get to both campuses. So within Berkeley, we're housed in the College of Engineering within bioengineering department, and at UCSF, we are in the School of Medicine and Pharmacy in the bioengineering and therapeutic science department. So here we go. What does your program look like? Verna's going to go over this next section.
So our program is a 10-month program. And from this slide, you can see it starts in August. And from left to right, obviously goes into mid to early June. And so what that means is that you're going to be starting at UC Berkeley, which is on a semester system. And before the semester even starts, actually, the earlier part of this yellow bar that you see is actually 2 weeks prior to the semester. We have a 2-week boot camp with the Fung Institute for Engineering Leadership. And then you'll be starting your classes. And then about a month later is when UCSF starts, and they are on the quarter system. So we also have some pre-workshops before the fall quarter starts at UCSF. We have orientations at both campuses to get you acquainted with the landscape. And we also have you choose a capstone project that you vote on, and then I match you up with teams such that in September you start working on your capstone project with your other team members. Typically, you'll have 2 to 3 other students in your cohort that you'll be working with. And you'll be working with your project sponsor. The capstone projects come from a variety of sources, both UCSF and UC Berkeley faculty and clinicians, as well as startups in the Bay Area and sometimes even beyond. You'll be doing in December, a symposium, so kind of a midpoint where you'll be doing a poster and talking and presenting in a public forum about your capstone project. We break for the winter, and then again, before the Berkeley spring semester, you've got another leadership boot camp, again with the Fung Institute. And then from that point on, you'll be working pretty heavily on your capstone project. And then we have ceremonies for graduation in May, but then with a formal presentation in June, and your real graduation when you end that. And so that presentation in June is a pitch session, and there you've got your whole 10 months. So let's drill down, I will, into the details of which courses kind of make up the year-long program. So what we do is we have 24 units total that are semester units that you're required to take to complete your master's program. That's divided between these 3 different areas: 10 semesters of science and engineering, 8 semester units of business and entrepreneurship classes, and then 6 semester units of clinical needs and strategies courses. All of the learning that you'll have in your coursework, you'll be applying quite heavily to your capstone project. And that capstone course and project is basically where you're going to be working on the whole year on that with your sponsor. There's also some room for electives, and there's flexibility in terms of how these semester units are applied. Because some people wonder, like, okay, well, I've got a life science, or I've got maybe even a business background. How will I be able to like make this work for me? Or maybe you have a heavy science background, but you really want to take mostly business classes. So the classes, there's one class that I teach, and there's also the capstone course that's taught at UCSF. And between our 2 classes, we have a total of about 10 units that can be flexed between business and entrepreneurship, clinical needs and strategies, and science and engineering. So my class, for instance, is across 2 semesters. It's a total of 4 units. And you can either apply that towards your business classes, or you can apply it towards your science and engineering classes, then giving you an opportunity with the other electives to pick those in other areas. Similarly, on the UCSF side, you can apply the units at UCSF for the capstone course to either clinical needs and strategies or business and entrepreneurship. So that's the way you're able to flex your program such that you can more heavily weight things in one area versus another with your electives. So these are examples of the titles of some of our core classes. I teach the project management class. The capstone course is kind of our center area. We've got also clinical needs-based therapy solutions taught at Berkeley, as well as ethical and social issues, designing clinical research for industry, and then healthcare, finance, and economics. So you can see that we cover all the different categories here. In terms of electives, there are several that you can take out of in entrepreneurship through either Fung Institute or MBA type classes. There's also classes in digital health, public health, computer science, and also chemical engineering. So there's just a variety of classes, whether you're more interested in devices or therapeutics, business, or more public health, which kinds of things you might want to focus on. So for our medical device track, every year now, starting this year is our first year, you've got options to pick for a medical device capstone project, or even a medical device that's considered a combination product, if we're lucky enough to get those, which we do have a couple of those options for this year, which means that they would be a drug or therapeutic and a device in one project. We've also incorporated, as we have in the past, medical device modules into BioE 296, which is the capstone course. And specifically, we focus in the areas of regulatory affairs, intellectual property, the devices market, and prototyping are some of the things that we focus on specifically with medical device examples. Design control, which is what I teach, is a specifically medical device focused requirement in regulations for industry. We have highly recommended elections, such as clinical need-based therapy, and we have so many other electives, like I mentioned before, at both campuses. For our therapeutics track, again, we have therapeutics capstone project options. We just had a lecture on hits to leads discovery in terms of drug prototyping, basically. And then we will have industry experts that talk about specifically the regulations for getting drugs and biologics to market, also intellectual property. Quality by design is now incorporated into my spring class. And so the class is called Quality by Design Control, because I cover both QBD as well as design control for devices. And then we have highly recommended courses, like I mentioned, a drawing on drug delivery, as well as bioprocess engineering and other electives. All of these real world capstone projects that I've mentioned to you are assessing clinical needs that are in the industry, in the market, in hospitals, etc. You'll be working on developing novel technologies, understanding how the product development process works, working on a business plan, regulatory strategy, and you'll all be connected to and under the mentorship of clinicians, corporate executives, and researchers. So just a little showing of what our capstones are this year. You can see that we have got projects that are listed here. There's 9 that are listed here. There's actually 10 projects. But on this slide, you can see that we've got one at UCSF that is working on renal function in kidney patients. Hopo Therapeutics is working on a new platform in radiogland therapy. We've got a couple of Berkeley projects. One of them is both UC Berkeley and UCSF sponsored. NextSense is digital interventions for ADHD. IntelliStent from Hartport. So quite a variety of different projects. And the 10th project is also a UCSF and Berkeley collaboration, and it has specifically the topic that they're working on is a selective automation for mammography interpretation with AI. So every year, the way the process works, if you think back to that timeline, is that I solicit well before the August timeframe projects from industry and from clinicians and faculty. And I typically get 1.5 to 2 times as many projects as I know we're going to need, because we typically need about 9 or 10, maybe even 11 projects if our group grows more. And then, so I try to get approximately 20 projects. that then pitch to you as students in the August timeframe while you're doing your boot camp through Zoom. You then get to vote on your favorite projects, and I match up students with their favorite projects. This year we had more than half the students got their top #1 choice, and most everyone else got their second or third choice. So yeah, that typically is how it works, especially now that we've got both device and therapeutics. Then the choices get spread out more in terms of interest. And so it turns out then a lot more students get their first choice in terms of capstone projects. And everyone gets a project that they're excited to work on. And you'll learn from industry experts all along the way, not only from your sponsors, but from classrooms. You will learn from Nada, who does a great job of lecturing on regulatory affairs processes. Dan Barnett, who is our resident entrepreneur at UCSF, is also the president and CEO of Theranova, which is a medical device incubator, basically. Levine, Baghdad, and Hahn. We've got 2 or 3 attorneys every year that come and talk to us about intellectual property and what the whole patent process is, as well as determining if you have freedom to operate. And then our scientific experts. We bring to you folks like Dr. Shubho Roy, who you may have heard of, is in charge of the Kidney Project and is our faculty director. Dorian Liepman is our associate faculty director at UC Berkeley and is also the co-director of the Berkeley Sensor and Actuator Center. And Charles Hart, who's also the executive director of Catalyst, UCSF, has a deep and long history of innovating in the drug and biologics arena. And so it's basically a mix of curriculum, capstones, and the network of students, faculty, and clinicians that really make MTM extremely special. And the best part is really our students. It's the people in the community that really continue to also help each other out in terms of alumni events, in terms of basically promoting each other. And these are the friends and connections that you're going to make for life and for your career-long growth. We would love to have you join us and have you hopefully be one of the faces in our next year's picture. So now it is time for a few questions. We will do a Q&A for about 10 minutes with our current students, and we'll put you into breakout rooms. And then we'll come back here into a larger group to finish up with any other Q&A that you might have of me or Joy, or general questions that you want to ask to the larger group.
Okay, so right before we break out into our groups that I'm setting up now, if I could have Yvonne, Vinayak, and Krishna just introduce themselves while I assign people to their groups.
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to see you all on this call. I'm Yvonne, and I actually just graduated from UCLA this past June with a degree in microbiology, immunology, and molecular genetics. So I'm coming definitely from a very life sciences side. And I think so far in the MTM program, like even though it has only been not even 2 months, I feel like I've learned so much, and it's nothing that I've ever been exposed to during undergrad. And I'm really excited to speak to you all later.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Sorry, I'll go next. Hi, my name is Krishna. It's nice to see you all. I got a degree from UC Santa Barbara in brain sciences back in 2021. And since then, I worked in machine learning research at UCSF for a bit. And then after that, I was doing business development in San Diego. And so I came in looking to do therapeutics, but I kind of realized that I'm interested in devices after taking some of the classes. So, and now I'm looking at entrepreneurship. So the MTM program is, something that I didn't expect would open my horizons so early, but I'm happy to speak with anybody about similar experiences or any questions you have.
Thank you. And Ben.
Hey everyone, I'm sorry, I'm in a bit of a loud space, but I hope everyone can hear me. It's great to see everyone. So I did my undergraduate back in Canada at the University of Toronto, where I studied life sciences and computational biology. After that, I worked in consulting in the biopharma and medtech space for about 2.5 years. And then I entered the MTM program with a pretty balanced approach towards therapeutics and device. So I'm taking courses in pretty much everything. And I intend to go into the commercial and the investment side of things in the healthcare space. So happy to connect with anyone and happy to answer any questions.
Great. So I'm going to go ahead and open up all rooms. Please feel free to join whichever student ambassador spoke to you. So go ahead, I'll go ahead and open all rooms and I'll see y'all back here in about 10 minutes. Okay, I hope you all had a good talk with the student ambassadors. I want to go ahead and give a little plug for our upcoming information sessions. So we'll be posting career pathways information sessions. So alumni are going to be coming and giving their stories and sharing how they use the MTM program to help them either pivot or advance in their career to where they are today. And so our first one of that series is coming up next week. And then we have another one in November. And then we also have an information session on how to put together a competitive application just overall for grad school. And it's not necessarily linked to our program. We're just hosting that for greater awareness and knowledge. So you can go ahead and sign up. You can use the QR code here. And then a few of you have been asking, you guys want some more information on our ambassadors. So this next slide will show you who they are, where they got their degree from, their direct email, and just to let you know, on our website shortly, office hours will be starting. So you'll be able to sign up for maybe a 15-30 minute chat with these folks here, just getting all the questions you have about the program answered from the student perspective. So that will be coming live on our website shortly. So stay tuned for that. And now I'll jump back in our last remaining time. Oh, yes, obviously, start your application today. If you just, when you have decided which program you want to apply to, at wherever universities you're applying to, just in general, start your application sooner than later, because getting letters of recommendation certainly take more time than you think. But the deadline for the MTM program is January 6th at 8:59 Pacific Standard Time. So if you have any questions in the meantime, please feel free to reach out to us at mtm@berkeley.edu. And now we'll jump into the Q&A from the group. So it can be directed towards Verna or I, or one of our student ambassadors if you didn't get a chance to speak with them earlier.
And also, I know everyone's not necessarily in a great place, so feel free to throw stuff into the chat, which you are. Yay! You want to handle those, Joy?
Yeah. So let's talk about funding. There's a few questions about funding and financial aid options. So when you are applying to the program, you are automatically be considered for a merit scholarship. So those merit scholarships have a wide range from about $1,000 to $25,000. But everyone is considered for that, and everyone actually that is admitted does receive an award. So even if you're a national student and you don't necessarily qualify for financial aid based off of FAFSA, which you wouldn't have, you're still considered and will receive some sort of merit scholarship. So another question is, where would you live if school is situated on 2 campuses? So students live on both sides of the bay. I would say probably about like 90% of our students live in the East Bay. Because you're only on campus at UCSF 1 day a week. We cram in all UCSF classes on 1 day so that there's not a lot of commuting back and forth across the bay, because we recognize that commuting takes about an hour each way. So that's where most people live, is somewhere in the East Bay, usually around the Berkeley campus.
I'll jump on around some of the other questions. So
Yeah.
Sophia asked a couple questions. So first of all, is there a public health or health policy component of our program? There is not. But with that said, a lot of the courses that you can take as electives are in the School of Public Health. So there is not an insignificant number of students every year who learn a lot from those courses and end up having probably at least 1 to 3 students have some interest in perhaps pursuing some aspect of public health policy. So feel free to look at the public health classes on the Berkeley side. That's where they're usually taken, and see if those are of interest to you. And feel free to reach out if you have specific questions. She also asked about financial aid for international students. So our financial aid works out this way. We have a certain amount of money we can give out as financial aid. Half of that, like Joy said, goes to merit scholarships, and that is for all students, international and domestic. The other half, because we're a California, US-based institution, is for those with financial need. And because taxpayer money comes in to us to give that out, that only goes to California and US permanent residents. With that said, there are other financial aid options. It's so huge depending on where you are in your specific situation that you should go through the page on the UC Berkeley side that our program, also our website kind of points to it. You should read through it carefully and start planning your financial aid and funding and scholarships and all that early on, because a lot, if not most students, probably have a patchwork of a variety of different sources for funding the program. Let's see. Wei Wang asked about funding, what sort of circumstances, how often. So, like I said, all students receive some amount of funding, but it varies based on your merit ranking. And your merit ranking is based on our rubric. So I had a student just say yesterday, which I was really happy to hear. So, because I very intentionally made it this way, our program is extremely transparent in terms of our admissions process. So a lot of people ask the question about what percentage of people get admitted. It's really not a helpful question to give you an answer to, because what is helpful is that our program, because even though Berkeley is a huge school, it's very competitive. It's very competitive for undergraduate and it's very competitive for PhD program. But for very small master's, professional, specific niche programs like ours, it's competitive, but not so much so that it's overwhelmed with so many applications that we cannot serve everybody. So if you go to the rubric that is on our admissions page, you'll see a link.
Posted it.
Okay, perfect.
In the chat.
You should go through that. The way we go through it is we have 3 different people, faculty, read your application. They're a mix of UCSF and UC Berkeley. And 3 people read it and score your rubric. So you should score yourself, because if you're scoring somewhere around 3.5 out of 5 points total of all those different sectors, then you should definitely apply to the program. You will very likely get in. And so it's really going to be based on your rubric score, because you will likely be admitted with a score something like that. That also means, though, if you have a higher rubric score, that is exactly what we rank you based on. So if you're closer to a 5, then you're going to get the most merit scholarship award, versus if you are lower down at a 3.5 or maybe even borderline kind of lower. And then again, the other half of the money that we give out is specifically for financial aid for financial need. That is only for domestic students. You'd have to look for financial aid in other ways outside of our program. We also give out and have people that come through from Fulbright scholarships. California also has what's called a graduate opportunity program scholarship. Again, that's for U.S. and permanent residents. We have a Native American scholarship program that we also help support. So look for all of the different, and again, that's also for U.S. and permanent resident, but look for all of these other niche type scholarships that may be applicable to you wherever you're coming in the world. There's so many of them, but again, they can be very valuable to find. She talked about living. Let's go. If we have time, I'll go over some specifics about the requirements for the application, but we do that in another session. Specifically, though, we don't talk about word count or page length or font size or anything like that. What we really want for the essays is for there to be both of them completed, and for one to talk about your history. So it's kind of looking back and where you've come from there. And then the other one is a forward-looking statement of purpose. And so those are both expected to be about a page or 2. But the key thing is go back and look at the rubric. We don't care so much about word count and page length. We care about some of those other areas, such as, do you talk clearly about not only your strengths, but also your weaknesses and the challenges that you've overcome? Because we're a master's program, we look for maturity, whether you're coming from an academic background and want to go into professional, or where you have a professional background and want to continue that further. We look for a level of maturity so that you're going to be able to work well in a Capstone team and you'll succeed. And also that you're ready for a master's program, because a lot of people apply and they've got a fantastic GPA. It doesn't mean that they get in, though, because we look for students who have not only a very good GPA, but if you have some other huge strengths, such as you've worked in community before for an underrepresented group, and you volunteered, or you've been in a leadership role, if you've done lots of presentations, poster presentations, maybe you have a patent. I mean, there's so many other areas. So read the rubric carefully and write in as most personal and honest way as you can, because that is really what's going to make a difference, as well as the same kind of writing in your letters of recommendation. So you're not going to do well if you give us, say, like a letter of recommendation from a high school teacher. Okay, those sometimes come in. Sorry, you're not ready. We need to see letters of recommendation from managers and supervisors in industry, or faculty and clinicians that you've worked on in their labs. It could be a class, but basically the better the letter recommendation is usually based on because they know you in a personal way rather than just a good grade in their class. Those are the ones that really separate you from others. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see.
So one of the next questions is about job searching and post-graduation and working. And we have, oh, Haley, I strongly recommend you come next week and you'll hear from alumni about that. We have like a whole 1 hour webinar just on different career pathways and career resources and support that we give students. So we can share like briefly. We have a plethora of resources from all over campus, from each campus that are available to students. We have career professional lead student ambassadors who organize events for their students. We have, working with the Fung Institute, there's a bunch of different career events our MTM students can take advantage of. Verna is constantly sending things from industry to learn about different areas. Having Verna with 40 years of experience, she is just a wealth of information herself. And then there's just the main campus career services on each campus as well. So I would say the amount of career activities available to you, whether it's through networking or one-on-one or resume critique, there's just so much. But we go into that next week for a whole hour.
Some other things, people, this is a question that in general, I'm going to say it to a few students here who are putting things in the chat. A lot of students come in and they're like, what can I do to be prepared? So if you are, in the life sciences, biology, clinical, pre-med, you're already an MD. So yes, half of our students are about engineers, but the other half are life science, pre-med, and clinicians. You will not struggle in the program. If you have your undergrad basic math, chemistry, biology, physics, or 3 of those 4, you're going to do great. You're going to find plenty of classes and opportunity to learn. And you can take, again, you'll find classes that are going to be technically really a challenge that you might love. And then you won't want to take a ton of other electives. And then you're going to find others that are going to be less onerous in terms of deep technical knowledge. And you'll feel comfortable with those. So the only students that I ever say, oh, you might want to, beef up things are students who come to us. And usually there's only like maybe 1 or 2 a year, but folks with a psychology background, maybe kinesiology background, maybe business background, they might not have those foundational sciences. And so if they do, then I say, okay, great, you're not going to struggle. If they don't, I say, okay, you might want to beef up or really look at the core courses to see if you would be able to learn. But I mean, I've literally, all the students that have come in have had some level of science, even if they're psychology or whatever. And they might sit in on a class and realize, oh yeah, this is so interesting, but it's above my head. You can drop courses at Berkeley, and UCSF, you can change to a pass-fail, you can pivot to another course, and you will find other courses that you'll be comfortable in. And there's so many other students to connect with that have gone down your same or very similar path. If you, in terms of skill sets, we love all the skill sets because as you will see when you come into the program with the capstones to choose, we love getting students with a broad background. So pipetting skills, Python engineering, machine learning, computational skills, anatomy lab skills, prototyping skills, of course, all the engineering types of skills, testing physical devices, prototyping. I mean, I could go on and on. So if it's in and remotely related to this growing and expanding healthcare, medical device, and pharmaceutical and biologics and gene therapy space, then you're going to be golden because the things that you're getting interested in is what all startups and clinicians and faculty are interested in as well. And you will find very likely a match of a capstone project and for sure, some really fantastic classes. But you don't need specific engineering skills if you're a life scientist, because you will be on a team with engineers. If you're a clinician, we've had clinicians every year like, oh, they're kind of afraid. I'd really love to be able to learn how to do some prototyping. Yes, we have our wonderful prototyping labs for everyone. There's engineers who haven't had a lot of hands-on skills. There's clinicians who haven't had any. And we meet you where you are, and we encourage you to use this year for yourself to learn and experiment, be creative, stretch your imagination on what you might like to do and where you might like to go to make the world a better place for physicians and patients. Yes, it is joint with UCSF. It means that you cannot apply to other programs over there. Is that correct, Joy?
Well, technically, because our program, our admissions process goes through UC Berkeley,
Mhm.
you might be able to apply for other programs at UCSF.
Yeah, you can't apply
You
to the
can't apply
joint
for any more
program.
at UC Berkeley.
Yeah, so like if you're like you can't apply to the bioengineering joint program because it's also a joint program, so it's also at Berkeley. But if there is, it might be possible to apply for like nursing or something that's strictly UCSF. That might not be out of the question because it's a different program. Let's see, have I?
Okay, I think we answered everyone. I answered some just straight in the chat.
Okay,
So
I was going to make sure. I don't think I have anything else. No, I'm happy to hang on if other
yeah,
people.
Verna and I will stay on and hang out with anyone, but I'll go ahead and stop the recording now and